Hello and welcome back to this Live and Learn series on finding your sweet spot, which may sound a bit strange to many, but it very much just focuses on the core element of your business and your brand. And really, as Simon Sinek said so perfectly, and it's starting with why. And there is no better guest to have on the Live and Learn to talk about this than our branding sister, Elle Moss from Drew London. Welcome back, Elle.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel very honoured that, I love this. So I'm really happy to share any knowledge I have on brand and tone of voice. So go for it, Charlotte. How are we going to do this?
Well, I've noticed in one of our other webinars, podcasts, we touched on brand purpose and why. And there were quite a few questions on it, and we wanted to sort of dig a bit deeper. And then we wanted to try and have an episode on it, but this year the time has just flown away.
Sure.
So I couldn't close season 2 without us talking about this and really starting to think about, even especially this year, which I do hate saying, but we can't avoid it, that we both own our own brands as well as work on other people's brands. And I know, hand on my heart, I could not have got through this year if I didn't have strength in my purpose. So on my worst days, when we were faced with, our entire pipeline dropped out in one day, we lost 90% of our business in 5 days in March. We had to close down and pause and stop the event side of the business. And every business piece of advice everywhere you're getting says, hibernate, close down, cut your costs.
Close business. So silly.
It was cut everything. And, without that strength in the purpose and this core vision, purpose, why, everything in me told me that was not what we should do. And lo and behold, it hasn't been easy, but we have gone from a team of 3 with contractors to now a team of 9. We grew 24%, our top line. We have rebuilt our entire pipeline. We've rebuilt all of our new clients. We helped out all of our clients that couldn't afford it. And, we end our year, end of November, with actually only just, but a very small profit in our P&L after all of that growth. And that tells me that, if you really have that core strength and that core why, you can do that, but you need that to cling on to.
I think that's, fundamentally where it comes from. It's a sort of gut instinct that drives you forwards. I think, and I know that you work with a lot of startups as well. We both have agencies that work a lot with startups, and it comes down to empathy at the end of the day. But also it comes down to a startup is born out of seeing a challenge and seeing a better way of doing it. And that why have you seen a better way of doing it? And what is your why is exactly the golden nugget, which is why it's called a golden circle, that drives you forwards. Because if you know your why, your how and your what should really follow really simply. And how old is your business again, Charlotte?
4 years.
4 years. You've done so phenomenally well. I'm so incredibly amazed at what you've achieved, especially given what we've been through this year. And I would say, you've probably felt like you were on a sure footing, and then with your pipeline disappearing and everything, the rug getting pulled from under you, you could either have gone, that's it, done, let's follow everyone and hide. Or you could go, why did I actually start doing this? What got me out of bed in the morning? Why did I set this business up? And that's exactly what your why is. So Simon Sinek, I can't take he's fantastic at how he explains it, but ultimately he really kind of came to this in 2011. I'm sure he came to it before, but he only publicized it in 2011, which is 9 years ago. But fundamentally, people, like I say, people that have started a startup, they have their why from the get-go. So my why for Drew London, and bear in mind, I've only really just probably this year, I've come to realize what that was, because when the pandemic hit, a bit like you, our pipeline completely disappeared, and we were counting our cash flow in pennies and seeing how far that got us. But actually I had to really think, why did I do this?
Yeah.
Why did I set this business up? It's a service provider. It's a creative agency. We sell ideas. That's a lot of risk for our clients because they're relying upon us to know what we're doing and have some expertise in that sense.
Yeah.
But you know what? I've been doing it for 15 years. And I was like, why did I set it up? Why? Like, that's ridiculous. Because I had a really good job in a design agency as creative director on a really good salary. Why on earth did I
Why would
choose to
you
do my
leave?
own path? The reason I chose to do my own thing is because, and I had this saying, sorry, and I hope I'm not yabbering, but for me, this is such an important thing, your why. I had this saying, and it became my strapline, and it was finding beauty within everything. And the reason that came about is because a lot of our clients were either recruitment consultants or technological giants or telecommunications experts, where you try and make a telecom brand look sexy. All right, it's not easy. But I really believed that we could find beauty in that telecommunication brand. And that's how I grew my business. I was like, I can make the work that you want, the creative that you want, the branding and the marketing that you want look absolutely beautiful. And it will mean it will put you head and shoulders above your your competitors, all begins with C. And that's the road that I went down. But, you know, forward the clock 15 years, I'd forgotten that I had started it with finding beauty within everything, until a client saw my Instagram post for Drew. I think it was about an education technology company that we had just rebranded. And they just said, finding beauty within everything.
Wow.
And so that why that I started with 15 years ago, and that client that I would have met 15 years ago, she's a friend now, but that resonated. She remembered that. They gave us work. They gave us money to deliver that work. So your why is what not just makes you get out of bed in the morning. And I'm going to ask you what your why is, Charlotte. But it's actually why, and it doesn't have to be if you run a business. If you're an individual working for a company, do you love it? Does it fulfill you? Is it relating to your existence? Is this what you want people to remember you by? Is this your legacy? Once you know your why and you promote your why and you lead by your why, you then build trust and belief in customers that you really want to work with. Sorry, that was a massive spiel, but I just love
it's
the
so
whole why.
important. I think we finally stumbled on the true why about 2.5, 3 years in, and have been developing it since, but thankfully found it before this year. And
when you say today, does that mean that this is something that's come from not you just individually, but your entire company?
Yeah, I think it's something that started with me but has evolved as a team, because it wasn't just so. In some of the training and development I've done on this, and people often ask, "Oh, do you know what? We started the company before we knew about this, and we started the company to make money, right? And that's and that's why companies exist. They want to make money, and that's great. And there's nothing to be ashamed of in that as well. Personally, for me, I believe you can make money and do good, and that comes into our mission, our vision, and everything that the company stands for. But I was in a training seminar on business strategy and finding your why. And someone asked you, but what happens if we have just done it to make money? And the trainer said that the most amazing line. They said, yes, but your staff, when things get bad, aren't just going to be like, oh yeah, but I want to make the boss more money, right? There's beyond you. When you hand over, maybe you become a chairman, or you exit, or you sell. Like, there was a purpose. You just need to find it. There was a reason you did it. And even if it wasn't, you will have developed one. But more so, you did it. Your staff, your team need to find a reason why they want to do this, why they want to work there. And there's a really good example of this where this was a really old story, and I've heard it so many times, but every time I hear it, it always really catches me. I know these 3 guys laying bricks, and someone walks up to them and says to the first guy, well, what are you doing? He's like, I'm laying bricks. Okay. And he goes to the second guy, and the second guy has the same question, and the guy goes, I'm building a wall. And then he goes to the third guy and says, what are you doing? He goes, I'm building a cathedral. They're doing the same activity, but they know what one of them knows what they have contributing towards. And when people know what they're contributing towards, that is when you get so much more traction. People are living and breathing the values. They are in it emotionally. They're not just doing a job. And that is when a business thrives and when a brand thrives. You know, when you walk into Apple in their environment, people aren't working in a shop. They're working in retail, but they're not working in a shop. They absolutely love it because Apple is one of those incredible brands that build everything based on why, values, helping people, and connecting people. And it's when you see brands like that, that's where it's really important. And you touched on it before, and I think this is a really important point that we should go into. And they're like, oh yeah, well, Apple's a really easy example because, you know, it's such a sexy brand and everyone knows about it.
Sure.
Let's not talk about the sexy brands. Let's talk about the everyday business to business brands that really struggle with this. So we work with a commercial cleaning company that set up 10 years ago and had sustainability at the heart of what they do. And they're now in a position where actually everyone's got on the sustainable route now. They were first, but you know, how much more can you really give? And we challenged them with going back to, again, their why and starting to create this external vision. And we spoke about this in one of our other webinars around brand avatars and personalities and what you say externally and what you say internally. And what we've done is you actually get to the point where when you really nail it, you don't have an internal and an external, it's just one. And we've found that this year with Live. But going back to commercial cleaning, we just said to them, right, okay, here's a couple of ideas, content ideas that we can come up with that really brings the brand to life. First of all is this vision that we want to create a world where businesses don't harm the planet anymore.
Right? That's so beautiful.
They're a commercial cleaning company.
Oh my goodness. Yes, that's good.
Yeah, but they are not using chemicals. They still are finding innovative ways to clean. So they're using this heated water. So you don't need to use anything. It's all just water going back into the environment. They're an incredible company. And it just takes going back to that why. And because we all get caught up in this day to day and it's such a difficult time, we lose sight of this visionary stuff that, you know, we need to think about. So we also said there's other things from that, you know, during this time when everyone has jumped in and they're using chemicals and stuff, you guys have always found a way. So we said that's another campaign we're going to do. We always find a way to be sustainable. We always find a way to look after our people. We always find a way. And that's another campaign that we can bring to life that shows the brand's why and purpose. And a couple of other examples, just one of them that I'll touch on because it's about covering the non-sexy brands. How do we make this real for just everyday businesses, right? So we work with a tech company that has a digital capture form and a digital pen that allows them to save time for things like field nurses, engineers, door-to-door salespeople. It means they haven't got to wait for paper to come back. It saves them a lot of time. But rather than focusing on the brand as in this is the tech, we said, what does it mean for the person, right? What does it mean to the person to save time? What does it mean to the planet when we're saving tons and tons of water because they're not having to make all these extra paper? And we went back to that and we said, you know, here is this hashtag around time freedom and hashtag guilt-free working. And here's some content things that come off of your why as a business. And we started looking at how do you connect with ordinary people? This isn't just the C-suite, the owner manager, the director, the decision maker. How can you start to talk to everyday people within the organization that makes them feel like they have a purpose and they can help? So another campaign idea was around the power of one. The power of one moment, the power of one recommendation, the power of one thing that you can do to have such a knock-on impact in helping save the planet. This is a tech company. The two very extreme reasons of finding a why and bringing that to life. Sorry, I've gone off on a
no, but that's absolutely brilliant. So I think, you know, a little bit like we've touched on before about vision, values, mission, archetypes, you know, so much that that a brand could and should do to find their personality, because it sets you apart from your competitors. It helps resonate through your internal and external customers as well. But it's really overwhelming.
Yes.
It's really overwhelming. And, you know, a lot of people feel that, and they don't know their why, that they're sort of missing a trick and they don't really know how to go about it. And it was really where this it's really difficult. And this is where this beauty and everything comes from, because
Mm.
actually what we deliver as an agency, pretty much anyone does in the creative field. We're WordPress developers, we're branding specialists, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's real blah. But the fact that we really do want to make everything so beautiful and make a more sustainable world has kind of set us apart from the next design agency. But it is really overwhelming. So I've got some tips on how you find your why, and then how you use that, the how and the what, to then build your marketing campaigns. Do you want me to start with a sexy brand, or do you want me to start with a service provider? Sorry, they are both sexy, just to
They're
put
both
that
sexy.
out there. You've already done a service provider, so I think we should go for sexy.
Yeah, I've gone in with a couple of service providers, so let's go in with a different example, and then we can. I've got a couple of examples we can jump in on that actually came up today, which is really interesting.
Well, see, I love that, and actually, it's a familiar story as well, this one. So I'm going to talk about, before we talk about how yours came to stay, because what I'd like to do is set the scene for hopefully inspiration to our listeners, so that they can do this for themselves, and then how it kind of works. And then I think maybe it would be really nice to hear from what you've experienced today, which I know that you shared with me already, and it's absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to I look forward to sharing that with our listeners. So this brand, Emmy London, it is a bespoke shoe, hand-finished, beautiful design, launched by Emmy Scarsfield over 14 years ago. Emmy is herself a shoe designer. She's worked all over the world for some incredible brands. This is not a cheap product. These shoes retail at, I don't know, starting at 500 quid. And you know what? She's got already this really large following. 14-year-old brand, though, goes back to the same thing that I was explaining with my 15-year-old brand, is sometimes you forget why you set this up. Well, I'll tell you why Emmy set this up 14 years ago. It's because we were all getting married. I'm a 6-foot giant, massive feet. No one needs to know that, but you know, it's on my dating profile. And I wanted really beautiful flat shoes for my wedding. And Emmy was my shoe designer, and she's like, you need to wear my shoes because they make you feel comfortable all day and they look really beautiful. Now, before that came along, all I could think of as in kind of brands, so like competitors, was Hush Puppies, which I'm hoping you're too young to even know what they are. Crocs shoes, which I'm hoping you've never owned in your life.
Your wedding day, Elle, come on.
And class. Well, when you've got a husband who's that much smaller than you, you want to be in something that's maybe hasn't got a killer heel.
Flat, yeah.
So she made the shoes. They were beautiful, and you know, she had already begun. So she'd already made this brand and these products that resonated with her and her why. And her why is creating the perfect balance of comfort and beauty. But through the pandemic, through this year, this amazing 2020 year, she felt like she was churning out, and sorry, Emmy, if you're listening to this, but I think you'll agree, she was churning out collection upon collection upon collection, trying out different styles, trying out different suede colors, trying out different ribbon lengths. And people they weren't really buying multiples. They were sort of, if they saw it in a magazine, so her PR was working quite hard. And so what we did was when it was just her and her husband and myself, we went straight back to, let's do the golden circle. Why on earth did Emmy London start up in the first place 14 years ago? And it was because she couldn't find the right shoes for her wedding, and she wanted comfortable, beautiful shoes that she could wear all day that just looked knockout. So her why was there, but she had to dig a little deeper, and she had to kind of remember.
It's easy to forget.
It's so easy to forget.
Yeah.
And it's, you know what, once you know it though, so that why, if you look at the website, if you look at any PR that she's worked with recently, if you look at her social media feed, she hinges everything off of creating a perfect balance of comfort and beauty.
And I bet her engagement and sales have just started going back into normal.
So when she released it, she had this incredible. So everything's virtual now. You know, her boutique in Chelsea is well, I think it's just reopened, but it was closed for a number of months, and so everything was virtual. And she had this sale meeting with this lady in Milan, and it went really well. And an order came through for 12 pairs of shoes, and it was because Emmy had relied really comfortably, I'm not going to say heavily, but comfortably on her why. But let's just talk about the other circles. So the why is one thing. All right, the how is kind of your points of difference. So it's like your USP. So don't get the whys and the USP confused, okay? So her hows are this: the fact that she has them handmade in Porto in Portugal. Then they are hand finished shoes and accessories by really experienced crafts women, men and women in North London. They are built to order, so they're very sustainable, and it's a family business. So it's her and her husband and her two daughters run this business. So those are all the hows. There's many more, but you know we are on a time shortage here, and I want to hear your story. But her what, really basic. When you get to what, you're like, what is it? It's shoes and it's accessories and it's stuff that you wear on your wedding day, or your mother of the brides wears, or you know what, I've got some that I wear with jeans because they are
around the house.
Beautiful. I just went around the house just tidying up. That is the what. You can be really fundamental with the what, and actually even the how should be, you know, your USPs and really easy to remember. It's the why that's really important. Charlotte, share your story, because I know that the listeners want to know.
It's so true. And I think going back to what you're just saying about it's so easy to forget. When someone first starts with us, I really do bang on about it. I talk about it all the time. And someone say the other day that I mentioned, I said, I know that I repeat myself on this, but when it is at the core of your business, it needs to be repeated because it is so easy to forget. And especially at this time, it is really easy to forget that actually we're just about to start a marketing campaign in the next week or so that goes back to purely this, our why, and highlighting it on everything that we do at Live is about creating human moments and connections. And the campaign that we're about to launch next week basically says nothing stops us making human moments and connections. In everything that happened this year, nothing stopped us, nothing will stop us, nothing is ever stopping us from making human moments and connections. And, you know, that goes into the next layer of the kind of messages in this campaign, which is, which I'm not going to be able to remember now, but it's kind of around, you know, why reach for normal, reach for better. And nothing changes if nothing changes. And it's like this, you know, normal was okay, but there is a better way. Like, why go back? And there's another strand to it that, you know what, some of this wouldn't have happened if things were normal. And for us, that's actually been something we've been able to celebrate, because through the really dark days, there's also been some incredible light and some incredible changes that have come through that's made us better. So yeah, it comes back to this human moments and connections, and it all comes from, you know, what would get me out of bed at 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning. And that's going to create some of the most amazing experiences all around the world that I've had the privilege of doing, to create these incredible in real life experiences. But I've always mixed in real life and digital. And that again saved us this year, because if we think about what we were at the beginning of the year, we were half events agency, half digital agency, combining the two, and that was our niche. It was always a bit different, but that's our what. And I never really get to that point. It's always a bit like, yeah, you know. We had a call in June where the Foreign Commonwealth Office had all these international scholars that had studied in London that were meant to have a graduation. And I was like, you know, we don't know what to do. We've got 2,000 students. We've got to do a graduation ceremony. They've got to go home. We've got 5 time zones. We've got 160 countries. There's 2,000 students. What are we going to do? And we're like, we're going to find a way. You know, there is nothing that stops us creating these human moments and connections. And we'd partnered with and bought this virtual island of where 2,000 students over 48 hours come across and had these amazing things. And as a part in the campaign that's coming up, where, you know, you arrived to your graduation in avatars, you got to party on speedboats, You got to share
Amazing.
these amazing connections, and everyone comes in and they're dressed up, and I mean, it was brilliant. My avatar looked a lot better than what I looked like. It was, you know, 3 weeks we were in, that was fantastic. It was like, oh,
Everyone should
back
live
to
through an
normal.
avatar.
But there were some of these, you know, but we joke aside that we, you know, really killed ourselves getting this platform up and running and getting it working. But the second we heard students really emotionally talking about how wonderful it was to have this experience together and how thankful they were to Chevenings to, you know, to put this on, um, that's it. It all made it worthwhile, because we had made the right moment and connection. And when others would have not been so venturesome and not been so bold, we continue to push it through to make sure that happens. So with us, it's always about this, making these human moments and connections, and it comes back down to our values, which support that, which is around liberation and liberating our people, our clients, and our members. Being inquisitive, never stop learning, and educate at the same rate as you learn. We believe in education, not exploitation. Being
That's very
boldly go where others would hesitate, and
nice. Wow.
excellence, because great is never enough. And once we nailed those and that line, everything stems from it. We hire and fire against our values. We pick our partners against our values. We ask our clients, we call them partners, what their values are before we send a proposal to make sure we align. And it's, yeah.
But how did you find your values? Like, have you got a tip and a technique that you can share? Because
Yeah.
with my clients, it changes all the time, and it can take anything from like a 1 hour workshop of a conversation, or you know, or a glass of wine in a bar, all the way through to 3 months of
Yeah.
of diagrams, spider
It was
graphs.
a few different sessions, chatting and me on my own, probably a couple of glasses of wine, know me. It was an evolution over 6 to 9 months. We go through a program in EO, the accelerator program, where we work through the scaling up Rockefeller habits. And there's some exercises in there about your values. But what it came down to when I did it was an A3 piece of paper landscape. I don't know why, but I just draw it into 4 quadrants. And I just started writing words that mean similar to each other. What do we stand for? What are these one words? What are the sentences? What are we really about? How does it fit with our why, which is in the middle? And I kept playing around with these words. And I started realizing that the groups all started tagging into everything. And I then started to find words that meant the same thing, but spelled out live. And from there, I wrote the sentences, and from there I wrote the story. And our values now is a really short 2 paragraphs. I can do it in a couple of sentences, but there is a brand story that is our values and why we do that, that all leads to this human moments and connections. And it links naturally to our mission, because our why, our strength in the purpose is in our mission, in that on the really hard days, what keeps us going beyond making money, we believe in
That's
making
one of
money
my
and
next
doing good.
questions. Yeah.
What is it? And it all comes back to our mission about breaking the spiral. And breaking the spiral is about breaking negative, repetitive behavior that keeps repeating itself. I saw that in the agency world coming up. I didn't like what I saw, and I just genuinely thought there was a better way, which we're already starting to do. You know, in our world, there is agencies that do good. Scaling agencies usually get hit about a 9% profit margin. Average agency is 11 to 13%, and agencies built for profit will get 20% at a max. Part of our mission was, well, if we break the spiral and make a better way, I want to be an agency that is scaling, making money and doing good, and has a 20% profit margin. And that is what we will start to hit for next year with that. But it all comes back to this. And we have it in our handbook, and we say in our handbook that it's, you know, this is part handbook, part manifesto, part diary of dreams. And I took that from, I can't claim it at all. There's 2 very amazing handbooks online that help you with your brand purpose and pulling it all together. Netflix published theirs, which is an amazing culture guide. And HubSpot also did it as well.
We share this in a notes.
Under the podcast, I'll put the 2 links. They're on like LinkedIn slides, and if you just search Culture Guide by HubSpot or Culture Guide by Netflix, 2 fantastic, really well written and published culture guides, which helped me establish like all of this. And there's a line in, I don't know if it's Netflix or HubSpot, one of them, where they talk about how they're maniacal about metrics, but their company on a mission. And this difference between being maniacal about metrics and being mission-led makes them unique, but makes them dysfunctional. And I took that and put that in now, because that is very much us and what we are as a growing brand. And we say that, you know, as we kick off our quarters and new people come in, so that everyone really realizes this is the difference. We are creative, but we have to be driven by metrics.
Yeah, because that's what your customers are expecting, right? They need to know, test and measure and everything like that.
And it goes back to what you were saying about Elle, it goes back to what you were saying about the how, because we talk about this is our why. Nothing stops us making human moments and connections, but our how is this sort of driven and tried and tested process, which again comes back to this lively process of listening first, insight-led thinking, visualize and vocalize, engage, learn, and yield. Because if you don't have all of those parts, no client's ever going to come back, because they don't get what they need. And actually, pitch, when we go through the why, the how we're going to do it, if they're the right the partner for us, we're done at that point.
Exactly. The what is like, because the what can change so much with everything that you deliver. I think in terms of kind of help finding whys, I think I very often, and this is not just a one-off, I will listen to Simon Sinek's why talk, TED talk. There's an even shorter one, just like 4.5 minutes. Amazing. And then go for a long walk and really sit with yourself until it's almost uncomfortable as to why you're doing what you do, and why you got up in the morning, and why you want to make money out of what you do. Like, what is it? You want to be able to pay for your mortgage and stuff, right? So what is it? And then you play it back, like dictaphone it if you have to. We do voice messages all the time, don't we, Charlotte?
I think
play it back. If you trust and believe it, if you would be happy sharing it with a close ally or a team member, you're on the right path. It just so happens that with the work that we do with our clients, for why is a fundamental, and it's the same with what you do at Live Consultancy, it's a fundamental, because it helps us believe in the journey as well. And I think that's the other thing that I found during the pandemic that has been amplified, is that we've had so many clients, new business, where their why is just extraordinary, absolutely phenomenal, and just want to, and I don't know, but I'm going to make a big punt here, that with the lockdown, and with maybe being furloughed, or maybe having time where you want to lock your children in a downstairs cupboard and not doing homeschooling, you might find some thinking about what you want from your life, and it may not have come down to a paycheck. Just saying. Because the day that I put the paycheck away is the day that I started treading my own path. It's the day that I started living my life. And there isn't a day that, trust me, there are some days and I'm like, gosh, this is going to be tough. But on a whole, oh my God, 95%, I love what I do. And I'm so grateful for it. But the day that I stop loving it, I'm going to be looking for my next why. And I'll tell it to you first, Charlotte.
Thanks. You've written a voice note.
Literally. Morning.
I think you touched on such an important part there, in finding your why. You have to be uncomfortable, and you have to be okay with being uncomfortable, and you have to be okay with being vulnerable, even if it's by yourself or with a trusted friend, person. When you do stumble upon it, you generally are quite tearful, or your eyes have welled up, or there is a real connection. I think once you get to that point, you really know it. But for most people, that's really uncomfortable.
Yes.
And we've done a few exercises where it's like the 5 whys. You're like, okay, so like beyond money, why did you start? And there's always a reason for the start. And then in that reason, we'll go, and why is that reason important to you? And we go down into another story, and there'll be something in there that you go, why is that bit important? And you keep going. And by the time you've generally got into about 5 layers of it, you're generally starting to have a conversation that goes, okay, now we're here. Because the why might have been a hole in the market or something. But usually when you dig a bit deeper, there's actually something else beyond that gap that was about you. And
that's so true. And it's very rarely driven by money, funny enough. It'll be, you know, like the whys often start with, I need to pay myself. That'll come out in the first 1 or 2 of the whys, and then, you know, you really do then start hearing, well, actually, I really want to leave a world behind that I'm proud of for my children. I really want to make a product that doesn't kill the planet. I really want to, I don't know, people have done some real curveball things. Like, I really want to just look after as many homeless dogs as possible. And I'm like, wow, okay, where did that come from? You're a trader in a FTSE 100 company. And that's, I think, fundamentally why I probably run Drew and I'm a creative, is because I think you're only here once, and I took that leap. And trust me, if I can do it, I urge anyone to do it.
Amazing. I will. I think there's some really interesting parts, and I don't want to go on with too many stories. I think we've kind of covered it. But for me, you really know when you've got to the why of when it is embedded in everything you do. It comes out in everything you talk about. It's in your values, it's in your mission, it's on your 1-page business plan, it's everywhere. And everyone in your company knows it, lives it, breathes it, and loves it. And if they don't, they're probably not the right fit for you, because I mean, we literally hire and fire on it now. It is the core of the business. But it is probably what kept us alive this year.
Yeah. Gosh, that's deep, isn't it?
It's true. And we can sit here coming just about, you know, come through the other side, and now we're going into our new financial year, and what the next year brings is not so daunting, even though we know that it's going to be bad. But it isn't so daunting because we've got through this one and we have strength in our purpose. And that's really interesting, which kind of leads us on nicely, actually. We, you know, this episode kind of wraps up our season 2, but we couldn't wrap up the year without talking about how on earth we got through this year. How on earth, like, what? I don't even know what we're going to call it yet, because it's kind of a combination of how did we do that and what did we learn from it. But I think because it comes part of this campaign that we're working on, I'm going to call it the podcast of Nothing Stops Us. And we're going to talk about everything that we went through this year. And we're going to do it in person, but at distance, because we've got the recording equipment in our office. And a couple of the members of Team Live are going to be in it with us as well, which is going to be lovely. And I'm excited and nervous for that one, actually, because
I'm really nervous.
It's a very raw understanding of what we have been through, and it's meant to be humble celebration, you know, but because we want to inspire others that there is a way you can do this. There is hope, even if you have hibernated your business and you're coming back to life this year. There is a way. There is a way through this. But also just being very honest that, but gosh, it wasn't easy. It really wasn't easy.
No, but I think I was trying to be encouraging by when I said if I can do it, anyone can do it. But I genuinely believe that. But I think having gone back through some notes that we made throughout this year, Charlotte, as friends and champions of each other, I think I'm looking forward to sharing some highlights, some lowlights, and hopefully some learnings and takeaways to encourage other people that it's so possible to really get your tribe together, support each other, push forwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Next week's format is going to be slightly more informal. It's just going to be podcast style rather than the video series as well. And that's purely because we may have to stop a little bit and keep re-recording, because it is going to genuinely be a very emotional and bumpy ride, but one that we are both being brave enough to kind of share with the world. And I'm really pleased and proud of that. So,
Yeah, me too. Warts and all, right? It might be not one that I want my parents to hear. And also, I'm glad it's podcasting and I can drink some wine and not feel, judged. I do.
there'll
This
be
is
no
what a friend
judgment
gave me
this
as
year.
well. It's a super woman glass, which has become my friend. It's full of water at the moment. It's become my friend through this year, because I feel like, well, I think you should probably have this as well, Charlotte, because you are a super woman.
Can we get
So
some of those for the home office? Oh gosh, what an episode. There is so much to take away from there. Anyone that
I
is
feel like it's going to be
listening,
an enormous amount of links. And also, my door is always open just for having a chat. And it's like, I think we both buzz off of helping other people. So
yeah,
make it happen.
I think, yeah, absolutely. If you're really struggling with finding your why, or you think you've maybe not found it properly or forgotten all about it, like, definitely get in contact and let's continue the conversation, because it really is the heartbeat of your organisation and your brand. On that note, Elle, thank you so much for giving up your time.
Pleasure. Always. Absolute pleasure. I
And
always feel like there's so much more, but thank you very much for having me.
I know, one topic at a time. And there is so much. I don't know how we're going to pack it in, but we're just going to edit it all out for next week's episode on wrapping up the year. Thank you everyone that has downloaded, supported, listened to the whole of the Lively podcast, and I hope you guys have got as much from it as we have, because every time we talk about this, I have another idea or something comes back, and it's great.
Yeah, same.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and speak to you all soon.